Hello, and thank you for listening to Getting Hard in Nate's Backyard. On this episode of the podcast, Nancy, Harley, and I sat down with Jeff Waters from Annihilator. Annihilator was formed in 1984 and is Canada's highest-selling heavy metal act with 3 million albums sold worldwide. They headlined this year's Calgary Metalfest V, September 17th, 2016, here in Calgary. And please keep that in mind while listening to this, because we wanted to get this podcast out before the festival, but we're unfortunately not able to do so just because of time constraints. So as always, thank you for listening. Hello, everybody, and thank you for listening to Getting Hard in Nate's Backyard. I'm here with Jeff Waters.
Well, hello. Is that my cue to say hello to everyone out west?
Yes. And
hello, everyone out west.
Uh-huh. And we got Harley here, too.
How's it going?
And Nancy.
Hello.
Cool. So this podcast is brought to you by Right Hook Mics. Go to righthookmics.com and pick yourself up a PE55 style microphone. They're awesome. Our guests are using them. Go to Right Hook Mics.
They're very sexy looking mics.
Yeah, they come in many different colors, and they are awesome. Also, this podcast is brought to you by Nancy and I, called Big Nate Productions. Go to the website, see how not long it is until Metalfest. We got the countdown clock. Yikes. I think we're at 19 days something as of the recording of this. And check out the podcast here. You can stream it from there, and any other shows we have coming up. This podcast is also brought to you by Calgary Metalfest. Yay!
Oh,
yeah! Calgary Metalfest V with, of course, Annihilator headlining this year. That show's Saturday, September 17th at Flame Central. And just go to calgarymetalfest.com and check out the whole show, and you can buy tickets there and all that good stuff. So with that being said, I'd like to officially welcome everybody to the podcast. Thanks a lot for being here, everybody.
Hey, Nate.
Cool.
Hi, Nate.
Cool. So how's it been going, Jeff?
Very good. Been excited to get back out west and actually play metal music. That's even a bonus for me.
I am personally super excited that you are finally coming out west. I'd seen you play a couple shows in Toronto. You know, I was like, oh, he's playing Canada. Oh, okay, I see it. It's a one-off. I get it. But now, finally, along with, you know, the big four of Canadian thrash, I guess. How do you feel about being put in that, you know, that category of the big four? Like, you guys are legendary.
Okay, well, I could go with that, but we forgot about, we didn't forget about them, but you got to get Anvil and Voivod in there.
Oh,
an
absolutely.
Honorary mention, but I know everybody's been trying to get them on that show as well, but we're gonna have to settle for the big four instead of the big six.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing, you know, with our neighbors to the south. You know, there's a few more bands like Exodus and Testament that, you know, really should be on there, but you know, there's only room for four, otherwise it wouldn't be the big four.
That's true. How about some of the eight? Let's call it.
You know, just to make it fair, absolutely.
I
yeah,
like that. Yeah, there we go. That's
it's pretty cool. Like, it's amazing for me. Almost like I'm getting to crawl back or get back to the Pacific Ocean, and Calgary's Nate, the Calgary Metalfest. You guys have all, and girls, of course, have, you know, helped us get closer to the West Coast finally, and it's been a long, long time. Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver, Kelowna, we haven't been there for so long, so it's great to make our first stop out there in Calgary, and it's an amazing set of bands. I mean, it's amazing what you've done to get us all out here.
It's enough to bring a tear to someone's eye.
Oh, yeah, we were going to talk about that. So,
yeah.
When that was your birthday, right, Nancy,
Yeah.
when we announced Annihilator, and like Harley, it was kind of a progressive metal show. So, but I told Harley, I was like, "You should just come down, man."
No, it's not very often that Nate personally messages me and says, "Hey, you should come to Distortion." So I was like, "Okay, no, I totally get it. You know, that's awesome." And then I'm like, "Okay, what's going on?" And then it's, you know, it's Nancy's progtastic birthday party, which was, you know, awesome. And so I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, It's got it. And then he's like, oh, and I'm doing a Metalfest announcement. So I'm like, that set the gears in motion. I'm like, it's got to be something really big. Because why? But so I had it in my mind, but I didn't really know. So when Nate and Nancy got up on stage to do the announcement, I was right there, right in front. And it was, Sacrifice, Exciter, Annihilator, and I had my hand on my head, and I was in tears with excitement. I hold on. I was so excited, I could have shit my pants.
I think we need a doctor, so or a nurse at least.
Seriously,
a very good looking nurse would work.
I left that night, just my mind frazzled, like didn't know what to do. I was just super stoked that finally Annihilator is coming. They're going to destroy the West Coast.
Well, you know what? That's really cool that you feel that way. I think I felt almost like that when I was talking to some of the guys from Razor who we got to play a show with a month and a half ago in Waterloo, and I just talked to one of the guys a couple days ago, and they heard that one of my favorite songs in the world is called Cutthroat by them. And they wanted to invite me to come up and play it. And I was like, are you kidding me? I'm there, right? And then, I'm just missing a few others. I wanted to play a song with Anvil at another place. They invited me to play one of my favorite songs from them, and I didn't get a chance to do it because of schedules. But, and then, of course, one of my, Dave Carlos, one of my favorite guitar players from my introduction to thrash metal with Dave Carlo was a huge influence. We have a song on our second record called Phantasmagoria that was also a demo that got us signed back in 1986, and that song, if you listen to the chorus in that song, that's a complete rip-off of Dave Carlo's riff in Cutthroat. So I said, well, no, you know what I mean. I worshipped the riffing and Stace McLaren screaming vocals and just that whole sloppy, messy, fast Motorhead kind of sound they had. And then, of course, for me, again, to be playing a show with Exciter. I mean, I went with my gal to Montreal. Yeah, see, I said gal, so I'm getting ready for the Cowboy West, right? My lady, or fiancée, Yasmina, whatever I can call her, we went out to see the original Exciter when they sort of kind of did their reunited show in Montreal a few months ago, and that was amazing. So just to play with them and watch them, it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, there's lots of talk about their reunited lineup.
We're trying to get in a day early. We are. Of course we are. I just bought the flights. We're getting in a day early, so we're going to kind of get in around dinner time and just shower, eat real quick, and then come down and watch some bands on the Friday, I believe, the 16th, right? And then, but of course, I finally met Pile Driver too, which was in Waterloo a few months ago when we played with Razor. So it's kind of like it's finally, for me, it's great to kind of get back and meet some of the people that I grew up idolizing or getting influenced by.
Nice. You guys recently did a bunch of European stuff, right?
For probably, I don't know how many decades.
Well,
non-stop.
Right?
It's been pretty good. We've been lucky. We've been going back and forth there. I can't remember how many flights I've been, but I tried to figure out by looking at old shirts and schedules and emails and things, try to find out how many flights I've taken from Canada to Europe, and it was mind-blowing, hundreds. But it's cool. We get to go back and forth in the summer, do festivals in Europe, and then the occasional South American tour and Japanese thing, and 70,000 tons of metal again coming up, and I host a jam on there and do guitar clinics for Epiphone and Gibson all over the world. So I'm really a lucky and busy and happy guy.
Man, that's the only cruise I'm ever going to go on. Because, my buddy was just over in Europe, and he did every single festival he could, ending in Wacken.
Oh, man, watching him on Facebook was just amazing.
Oh, and he was in Sweden all this time, too. He wants to move to Sweden.
He was a bartender at Wacken.
But he said that still, by far, 70,000 tons is the best. Because he's like, at Wacken, you're up to your knee in mud. But he's like, at 70,000 tons, you're hanging out on this boat, this like tropical thing, doing all this stuff.
Kind of a no-brainer.
If you're not seasick and if it's not too windy, stormy, it's great. But it hasn't really been that bad. Like, I've been on many of them because we seem to be playing roughly every second year with the band, and every year I'm hosting this all-star kind of jam thing there.
Nice.
And it's, I mean, I haven't been on any other metal or rock cruises, but you sort of get an idea when you travel around the world and talk to people that have been on the other cruises. And sure, there's some that you want to go on just, to get your 80s sort of hair metal or hard rock or sort of more poppy, glammy metal. It would be great to see some of those bands all together, or the Kiss thing or all that. But when it comes down to just, kind of, I don't know how to explain, European style, I won't say just European style, but sort of in general, mostly European style, and 80s heavy metal, which covers a lot of ground there, but also, everything from the Nightwish style bands to just all these different types of bands are on that cruise, to us old timers and to the new kids. It's just amazing. I mean, it's really the most amazing cruise ever. It went from the 2,000-3,000 people all the way up to, I think, 5,000 person cruise in the last year or so, and it's just a blast. And I got super lucky because I wanted to get back on that boat after the first time that I was on it with Annihilator, and I just went down there and played as one of the, at the time, only 40 metal bands, right? And I played, and I came back from that, and I was already back in the Ottawa area at that time when my first cruise with them happened, and it was like minus 25 when I left Celsius and left Ottawa. I went down to the cruise, had not just the weather, but just the bands and the people and how respectful everybody was, and it wasn't what you would think. It was like a lot of bands are hesitant to go because they think they're going to have to hide in their cabin and they get mobbed. There's some drunken fans will be slobbering on them or just pushing it, and it's a complete opposite. Everybody, like, people don't, in a way, almost don't give a damn who it is. You're just another metalhead on the boat, and when they see the time is right that you might be up for an autograph or a photo, or even just to say hi or say you suck, doesn't matter what it is, right?
Yeah.
Or why don't you write an album like you did in this year or that time? It's so it's such a good family of people, and even the captain on the ship, I remember talking to him once, saying he was telling me that this is literally the staff want to get on this cruise, work it, because it's the most nicest, it's the most polite, nicest bunch of people. And when the staff are in the off time on the boat, they're actually allowed to come up and hang out and watch the bands and hang out with the fans, and they're not allowed to do that normally. So
how could you?
Anyway, I could just yap forever. But long story short on this story is I ended up in Philadelphia waiting for my connection home after the first cruise. And in Philadelphia, it was only like minus 18. Got home to Ottawa, but on the way back from Philadelphia to Ottawa, I said, I have to get on this damn thing. I have to get on again. I have to get on next year. I know Annihilator can't come back and play 2 years in a row. We'll be lucky if we ever get back on it. And I thought, okay, as soon as I get back, I'm going to wait a week, and then I'm going to email the boss, Andy Pillar, who actually was my tour manager in the earlier days. And I said to Andy, listen, because I thought I have to get on this cruise somehow. So think with your business hat on. And I said, okay, All-Star Jam. Let me arrange an All-Star Jam on this thing. And he went for the idea. The next cruise I was on it, I was happy as heck. Got paid a tiny bit of money, but my flights were covered, and hotel and food and all that fun stuff.
Sure.
So I was not in a negative. I was in a plus, technically. But the main thing was I was on the cruise. Did this jam in a karaoke room, had a complete blast. There must have been like 300 people there.
Nice.
And literally within a couple of years, it's become 1,600 people. The most seen show on the boat is now the cruise. The All-Star Jam on the cruise. So and then I get actually paid as if it's like it's my show kind of thing. So I get paid good money to go down there, which don't tell anyone, but I do it for free anyway. But,
right.
Make a living for a week doing that, and I tell you, man, that's the funnest thing ever. Is you get guys like Michael Schenker and Dave Lombardo, and all these guys coming up jamming AC/DC and Painkiller by Priest, and then you've got all these different types of musicians, from Moonspell to Gus G to all this stuff going on, and it's just probably the best jam out there that I've seen.
That's really cool. So what year did you start doing that again?
I think about 5 years, 4 years ago, 5 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Like
So it's definitely gained some steam by now.
I missed 1 year, but just schedule stuff. But the guy said that's never going to happen again. Andy said,
Nice.
Screw that. You're never going to miss another one. I'm going to sign you up for a long-term kind of arrangement. So I'm there.
That's awesome. Wow. Now I want to do it even more.
I don't even need to be in a band. Just doing that once a year is good.
Live off that.
So let's get this Calgary show over with before I call it quits. Okay?
Oh God, please do it.
So with what you were saying though, you've been going back and forth to Europe for like however long. Like, how was it this year? Was it good? Was it good? Would you care to speak about it?
The trip kind of thing? Or
Well, like the whole, like you're going over there playing all these crazy huge shows. Like,
yeah.
Is it like? Can you give the listeners kind of an idea of, like?
Well, when we were in our sort of what some people would call our heyday, was like our first album was '89, second one was 1990, third one was '93. And 94 was the fourth one. And those were our big albums. The first couple were kind of worldwide successful, and the third one was everywhere but North America. And then the fourth one, called King of the Kill, was just a massive Japanese and European thing.
My favorite track.
When those things hit, it was like, we didn't really play a lot of festivals. Festivals like Wacken didn't start until like a year or two after I started with my first album. So there wasn't a lot. I mean, there was festivals, but they were more for the mainstream, massive selling bands. And it wasn't as much, I think, of a metal festival thing going on in certain parts of the world, like especially Europe. As years went on, interestingly enough, as the sort of North American and partial worldwide decline of metal in around '93 happened, metal festivals were springing up everywhere, and slowly they were a couple thousand people, and a lot of those stayed with it, and like Wacken, obviously, and they just became bigger and bigger and bigger. So we never really got to play those festivals, even though we were playing the big Judas Priest tours and playing with a lot of our own big headline shows and tours. But so I never really got to experience all that stuff, because around 1997 is when Annihilator's European, Japanese kind of success started dying down, and there was a 10-year period until 2007 where it was just hit at a low where it was just enough to continue and making records and do some touring every year or so, but there was no big festivals and there was no big success, and we were playing smaller clubs and doing everything from 300 to 600 people a night, which is great. I mean, it still worked, but it wasn't making much of a living. I had to do a lot of other things around that, like mixing records and doing producing and stuff like that, and songwriting. But that 10-year, 97 to 2007, there were no festivals really, maybe a couple. And then things turned around in 2007, and each album has gone up and up in sales, which is ridiculous, because that's like 9 years of each album sells more than the other. And that's not actually supposed to happen to older bands. To any bands, especially older bands who are not putting out their first couple of records. But so then, all of a sudden, the festivals around 2003 started noticing this little Annihilator trend, and it's not a big thing, but it's still going the right direction. And the festivals started giving us calls, and it's 2003 to now. It's just been going up and up to the point where I think 2003 we were on at like 3:30 in the afternoon, getting paid like €6,000, which is literally not even enough to get you and your band and crew to fly to the festival.
Sure.
From Canada to the last 5 years have been just going up and to the point where we're even co-headlining with Slayer in Bulgaria at a festival, or we're on with only two other bands on opening night of Wacken, like Rammstein and Deep Purple. So you kind of got this kind of weird life where you got this unknown metal band from Canada, in Canada and the States, unless you're on the internet or a real metalhead that goes and seeks other stuff that they haven't been hearing on the radio, metal stations and stuff. And you got this 50-year-old metalhead guy who's been working on his 16th album now, who's like, now it seems to be the successful time of the career for the band.
Nice.
So it's kind of like, hey, what can I say? It's not boasting. It's like I'm totally proud of it, and I'm totally excited about it, because we get to play all these big festivals. Back to your question. Yes, we get to play these cool festivals now. It's awesome.
And there is Jeff Waters'
done that
version
in one
of
sentence, but I had to do the Jeff Waters thing and just babble.
right?
No, it's beautiful. This is a forum for that.
You're still, you're pretty much the driving force behind Annihilator. You write and you do everything. You're doing vocals now. You're back singing. What was it like losing Dave Padden? He was one of your longest
it was a
vocalists.
shock. I mean, I'd been singing on the 95, 96, and 97 albums from Annihilator, which were our 4th, 5th, 6th albums. And I got really lucky on the 4th because it became a huge album. I actually didn't think we'd even get a deal from it, and it was the complete opposite happened for us. It was a huge album.
He was
so I was
huge.
stuck for 3 albums singing. I got to like it, and then boom, it was gone because I wanted to get a singer in there and just focus on guitar. There was a lot of pressure and being in shape, and just it's a tough job playing guitar and singing. And I was like, okay, I'm not James Hetfield or Dave Mustaine. I can't pull this off anymore. I don't want to do it anymore.
Well, I saw you. I saw the DVD you guys put out at Masters of Rock. That was amazing.
Yeah, that was cool. The thing is, all the years later, I found Dave Padden, and he was, quote, just the singer. He was our new singer, and a lot of people at the time in 2003, we played, that was the year actually when he joined. It was a coincidence, but that was the year that we started playing festivals, and he got up there on stage, and people were like, who is this new metal, short-haired, tall, spiky, short-haired guy that looks like he'd be in a sort of a American new metal band? And I knew that this kid was talented as hell. He just was very insecure and inexperienced. And I knew for some reason I just said, I'm taking a chance no matter what. Mm-hmm. And got the first album out with him, got slammed, and it wasn't really actually his fault or because of him or his singing or newness. It was because I let the record company at the time tell me which single to put out first and to call the name of the album that. And it was a freaking Janet Jackson title, All For You.
Yeah, whoa. 2004.
The chorus of this, I like the song, but the chorus of it was a very commercial song, and the chorus of it was very, sounded like something out of Kiss Unmasked era. You know what I mean?
Like The One, right?
It was just like, but the song The One was a ballad, so that was okay, because we were always doing ballads and
very
things like that, and a lot of fans seem to like that. But once you get into this sort of, wait a sec, I thought Annihilator was a cross between 80s thrash and 80s heavy metal, and they're doing this sort of new metal stuff. When they heard that single and that video come out, and the video is shitty, when that comes out first, and that's the first impression you get, that was a big mistake. There's a song called Weapon X, and that was supposed to be the title and the first song on the album, and the label AFM Records told me at the time, no, 9/11 just happened a few years ago, and we don't want anything called Weapon X on the cover. And I'm like, well, it's a freaking cartoon. It's a comic thing. And, and they said, no, Weapon, blah, blah, blah. Let's not even put it on your album. Let's make it a bonus track. And I'm like, oh, no. So I kind of looked at it all these years later and went, you know what, especially with the internet now, one stupid little thing can totally change the direction of impressions of a new singer or an album or a career.
Yeah, well, it was a very different sound
with that album. And then Dave, I stuck with him. I didn't get rid of him after that. I stayed with him, and the year after, I think I did one of my top 4 albums that I had ever done, called Schizo Deluxe, and that was directly because of Dave Padden's will to do what I want to do, which is prove to ourselves and screw everybody else that we're going to make a good record. And that was the album from Annihilator that really, called Schizo Deluxe, that really didn't get it noticed because the president of the record company that we were on, AFM Records, actually sadly died. He ran his car into a tree and died. He was a father, a husband. So after all that baloney with them, that stress I had on that 1 year with the new singer and the label doing everything wrong and giving me bad advice, and I let them, so it's my fault too. The poor guy died. So then my album Schizo Deluxe came out, and it was just a mess. Like, it was a disaster as far as that.
There's great tracks on there. Maximum Satan, I love. Plasma Zombies. It's great. Great theory.
Dave and I always just would laugh, and him and I would look at each other, I'd say, once every 3 months, and we'd look at each other and say something, and it would have something to do with you know, if that album had came out a little earlier or a little later, you know, like it's one of those things. But you can't take it back, and we just sort of chuckled about it. But he was with me for 12 or 13 years, and
the longest standing vocalist.
Yeah, he became not only the singer, but he became the guitar player. And after that sort of derailment, public or internet derailment of that debacle of the wrong song, wrong title, blah, 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 on that first album that sort of took us out of the game for a few years to get a reputation back a bit, quite a few years. Dave finally, in Europe, in South America, and Japan, finally got the respect as being like a mini Hetfield, where he was able to play Waters' guitar riffs live and sing very well, and he started getting really freaking good. And I thought he was going to be the singer for the rest of my career.
Fantastic.
And I guess a couple of Decembers ago, he was about to fly out from Vancouver to work on our record that ended up being Suicide Society later. He'd never heard the record because I'd written it, but I hadn't played it for him yet. He basically called me up and said that there was something going on that he, couldn't really discuss. He was just his excuse was he was just couldn't do it anymore, wasn't into it, and I was like, well, yeah, I know you haven't been into it for a few years, but you sure you want to quit? And yeah, it was a bit of a shock for me for a month, and it was, I talk to the guy every month or so and text him, and we make a few jokes here and there when I'm on tour. When he's doing something, he'll send me a short but sweet message about, like, usually jokes about things in the past and what's going on now with both of us. But yeah, I just said, screw that, I'm going to find another singer. I looked for a couple of weeks, couldn't find anybody that liked this, and I'm doing it again.
Well, yeah, and you know what sounds best.
Once again, I'm back to where I was before. It's going so well over there that I'm stuck doing it till I die.
Fantastic. Well, it's awesome because the new album just sounds incredible. I listened to it all day today. Just
thanks.
Fantastic.
So, Jeff, we have a fan question that Nancy's going to ask. Make sure your mic's on. Is it?
Is it?
Yes, I'm going to write a heavier album like the early days. Yes, that's coming right now. Yes, that's coming right now. I'm working on it as we speak.
Okay, here we go.
Torian from Calgary asks, who influenced you to play guitar?
Who influenced?
Who was your biggest?
Who's your biggest influence on guitar?
Oh, gosh, that would be 100 people.
Yeah, cool.
But yeah, no, okay, I'm going to say this first and it'll never happen. I'll make this short. Let me see. Well, I guess influences would... Boy, I mean, the first time when I was a little kid, I heard Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting by Elton John. Not Nickelback, but Elton John.
Yeah.
Back in, the 70s? I was a little kid. I was born in 66, so whenever that song was on the radio, maybe I was 10 or 8 or whatever the heck it was, but when I heard that intro guitar riff, it was like one of those things where your ears just stand up and you go, what is that? And, as a little kid, disco was happening, and
right, yeah.
You had this I Was Made for Loving You with Kiss and stuff, and I saw Kiss covers and stuff. You couldn't help but see them on covers of magazines, and I'm like, who are these guys? Is that a band? Holy cow, I gotta check this out. And of course my mom wouldn't let me have any of those crazy covers in the house. I remember Kiss Alive 2 she threw out because Gene Simmons had blood on the cover on his face.
Yep.
And we laugh about that now, of course, but and then I gave her a picture of me and Gene once for her birthday.
For Mother's Day?
Yeah, like, here's the guy, Mom. But anyway, it's I'd say the first super duper influence, like the top guys that really had the impact for different reasons were, I could say there's so many teams of players like Paul Stanley, Ace Frehley, and you could go on, Joe Perry, Brad Whitford. The Aerosmith Rocks album was one of the coolest things I'd ever heard when I was a kid. Sweet Desolation Boulevard is one of the most underrated albums of all time, and that was a record by the British band The Sweet, and they had, of course, Baller and Blitz and Fox on the Run, the Poppy songs, but those are written by Chapman and Chin, two famous writers. But the band got to write on that album, the B-side or whatever, they got to write their own songs, and those songs were absolutely phenomenal. The Testament covered them. I wanted to cover all the songs until I found out that all these other good bands covered their songs already.
Right.
but they were influential. Elton John's guitar players, you know, you couldn't help but hear Rolling Stones stuff all the time as a kid, twanging away, but it wasn't something that interested me, and I was bored with Dylan and Stones, and that, you know, at the time there'd be two crowds. There'd be the hard rockers, they call them, and there'd be the potheads or whatever. There'd be the Zeppelin, you know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Zeppelin, the Who, Stones, whatever. So I kind of liked the rock stuff, and then there was these bands coming up called Black Sabbath, and out there, I'm like, who's that? And then AC/DC, Angus Young. So there's my first major one, would be Angus and Malcolm.
Cool.
Angus because of the bluesy leads, and Malcolm because of his just rock solid rhythm playing. And Eddie Van Halen, no one can play solos, have had that much influence on guitar players, play that kind of rhythm, and play and write songs like he did. And unless you lived in that time, you would never have realized how big of an influence that guy had on the world.
Sure. Well, even their drummer too, like the Hot for Teacher thing. Who was doing anything like that before that? Right?
That's like the rumbling riff that everybody knows.
Yeah.
Yeah, they that made the shuffle famous, and guys like Vinny from Pantera took that over, and many people have taken from that because it was so good. And I think I started getting into, like, you know, lead players like Akira Takasaki from Loudness, and
nice.
He was basically a copy of Randy Rhoads, Eddie Van Halen, and Richie Blackmore. That's what
Crazy Nights, that opening riff.
Rock and roll Crazy Nights.
Oh, the best.
A great honor for me was Loudness asked us to come to Japan and do a tour with them.
Holy!
Just before their drummer died.
Whoa!
And that was, I think, 2000. What was it? 2001. It was. I remember 9/11 because we got back. I don't know if it was that tour or I can't remember exactly, but maybe it wasn't. But I'm thinking that was the tour we did with Loudness, and we came back, and one of our guys went through Logan at Boston Airport the day before the same plane went into the Trade Center.
Oh, man.
So that's how I remember that tour, was from what happened as soon as we got back. But, you know, Akira Takasaki from Loudness for soloing, and just his sound and just how flashy he was. And I like the flash of the Angus and the Eddie Van Halen, so I was drawn to Akira Takasaki for a few years. And then there was Matthias Jabs from the Scorpions, who was amazing he's one of the few guitar players, if you listen to Scorpion stuff, where he could, he would literally just sort of stop playing, and he would wait till the singer Klaus was done, and he would sing with Klaus, but on the guitar. He would sort of echo him or do something around the singing. So
sure.
There's not many bands in history in rock and metal that have a lead guitar player literally playing over, before, and after the singer. I mean, this is almost unheard of.
Right.
And he's about the only guy that could do it and stay out of the way of the singing, but also be a lead guitar player at the same time. So when it came time to Matthias's solos, it was almost like, oh my God, you've been soloing the whole song, and now you're going to do a 30-second solo. Okay, go for it. It was just so good. But yeah, and then there's the thrash era brought the King Hanneman guitar picking, fast picking, and the tight picking of the Hetfield thing. And even like a lot of people say to me, like they'll say, "What's one of your favorite lead guitar players?" And somewhere in the top 10 will be Kirk Hammett, and people will look at me and go, "That's great for a high school kid or a guy starting out playing metal guitar to grab a wah pedal and buy a Kirk Hammett guitar." But you're Jeff Waters. Why? What? Didn't he take some leads from Dave Mustaine in the early days on the demos and on the first record and second? And isn't he kind of sloppy, or isn't he? And I'm like, excuse me, if you'd see Angus Young, Eddie Van Halen, Kirk Hammett, if you see them live or you watch a YouTube thing, not one of those three ever could play the exact same solo that they played on their records, ever. And that's because they were and are complete 100% feel guitar players. They have the technical thing down, their own style. They had everything down in their own sound, which is one of the most important things. But they also had the opposite of what you think would be great, which was they couldn't play their solos again. And that's because they were so damn good. It was that second of their life, you were going to get something that nobody else could do. And
sure.
That's Kirk Hammett. Everybody knows his sound, his style. He's got feeling. And then you find out years later, of course, we all found out that he was getting in shit in the studio from, I don't know, Bob Rock or Hetfield or Ulrich or someone, there was some things about him being sloppy or not practicing enough and stuff like that. And I'm just like, as a guitar player, but as a fan, I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Talk about one underrated guy to maybe even that band, because his solos influenced. I mean, he was the Eddie Van Halen for the solo influence of our times. I mean, you know, and then a lot of people look at me and like, dude, what's your problem? And I'm going, hey, I know, you don't.
Nice. So I have another question that was asked. We just did a podcast with Sacrifice this evening as well.
Yeah.
But I think it would apply over here too. Is what's your most favorite show you've ever done? Can you pick one out of all of them? Is there one that stands out?
Just one.
That like
just one.
Was there Japan? Was there somewhere huge,
Well,
or somewhere small?
I could say a show that go, oh yeah, they were so crazy and it was so good, and blah, 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 or we played great, or we played crappy, but the crowd loved us. But I'll go a little different. I'll say on this tour in 1990. Oh yeah, okay. I mean, and I could say, oh yeah, when the opener was Pantera playing 30 minutes, Annihilator went on and played 50 minutes of our Never Neverland, our biggest and best album ever. And then the headliner comes on after us, the special guest, and it's one of the best albums ever in history, called Painkiller from Judas Priest. I mean, I did 3 months or 2-3 months of that European tour with Annihilator. Pantera was off it after the first month, and because they got called back to the States. And that's when their record broke. Their record hadn't broke while they were on the Priest tour, so nobody really knew them. So that was a cool story. And the shows on that, you can imagine that you're standing there, you know, Diamond Filler's standing there, these new kids that you don't really know, you're sharing a bus with, and they party real hard, and they're really good, but you don't know them, and there's, you know, Kaki Downing and Glenn Tipton and Halford are standing there looking at you, and you're like, what am I doing here? I'm a kid from Ottawa, why am I here? You know, like, this is amazing. So you can pick out any of those shows or some of the big festivals, but I'll go with 1990 Never Neverland headline tour for Annihilator in Europe. I had a fever of 104 degrees. Ooh. My manager didn't want me to cancel a show because there was a lot of money at stake in these shows. And he just told the doctor, like the doctor had said, you need to get this guy into the hospital, and he needs to actually get air ambulanced home. So he's very sick. And instead, somehow, he convinced the doctor. The doctor realized that this manager was not going to let me do the right thing for me. He was going to force me to play. So I guess there was some argument going on, and a bottle of pills or two, antibiotics and stuff came out. I took a bunch of stuff. He had me sitting on a chair on the stage. That night, 104 degrees, totally whacked out of my brain on antibiotics and medicine to keep the fever down.
Wow.
And I think I probably played the best I'd ever played in my life. I played most of that Never Neverland album sitting in a chair, and I puked in a bucket. That was an awesome thing.
Jesus, feverishly.
There's a bucket, yeah. There's even a picture of that I got to find. And the reason I think that was the coolest show was because nobody really knew it except a few of us. I was actually, and not being dramatic, I was near death, and I played
dying at
the
least.
most perfect show I'd ever played and never will play again. If you listen to the Never Neverland album and you figure that most of the songs were being played that night, and I played it exactly like the record, I don't even think for a second I missed anything on that solos or rhythm.
Perfection.
That was probably the most coolest time, because I remember getting off the stage, going right back to a hotel, throwing up, blah, 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 taking temperature every couple hours to make sure we didn't have to go right back to the hospital if it hit 105. And I remember saying, well, at least if I die, I've had a perfect show. Too bad there wasn't video cameras there.
Now there's so many. Everybody would love to catch you about to die now.
Yeah, and how many people were either born or even a teenager when I was doing that show? Come on.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, well, wait, do you have any more questions?
That light up Gibson that you played in that DVD, the one that, you know.
Oh yeah.
You said you should be in Wasp. Do you still have that, and are you gonna bring it? Because
Yeah. I knew what you're getting at that before you even said it.
I love that guitar. When I saw that, when I watched it, I'm like, yeah, I should be in Wasp. And like, shut the lights, you light it up. I was like, wow, amazing.
I think I got that. I mean, so many guitar players have done that, and in so many different styles of music and genres.
It.
But I think when I first saw that was one of the guys in Wasp. I think it was a guitar player.
Yeah.
And this, not Chris Holmes. We're not going way back there.
No.
More like 2005, 6, 7 era.
The newer era, yeah.
And he had I think it was a guitar player, a really good guy, like the bass player and the guitar player at the time, if it's the same guys now maybe, had so much energy and they were just amazing to watch. And he came out with this lit guitar, and the light bulb went on and said, okay, that's it, I got to find out who did this, and I got to get
Your guitar collection is just immense.
Well, this is the survivalist / businessman / just in case it's the end of the world mentality.
Tools.
What I do is I've made up. I haven't done this for years, but I've made up one of those. And the first one I used before this Masters of Rock DVD that you saw it on.
Yep.
I used it, and some rich guy that runs a computer software company got a hold of me and said, "I want that guitar." And I said, "Hey, well, it's not for sale." And then he said, "What if I offered you this much?" And I said, "Sold." So that was done. I'm for sale.
Nice.
And then I just went and I got the British company to put the lights in to do it again. I gave him a bit of publicity. Gibson gave me the guitar.
Nice.
Cost me $0. I did the same thing. I played it for a tour, and then somebody came up and said, "Do you want to sell that?"
Okay.
I don't. You know what I could do real
amazing.
quick? If you pay me money, I'll go get it made, and then I'll just bring it there and give it to you.
Nice.
Well, that's interesting that Harley brought up that question, because where I was going was I wanted to talk about the Calgary Metalfest charity auction for a minute.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, so for people that don't know, the Calgary Metalfest charity auction has happened every year since 2013 at Calgary Metalfest 2. And it's a live auction that I kind of host with my buddy. We'll see what happens this year. I might just, I have people to host it, so it might just go that way. But this year, last year we raised $2,200, which brought us up to $4,000 in total that we've given to Make-A-Wish Southern Alberta. And it's a live charity auction, and it's my favorite part of the festival, especially when I do get to announce at it, because it's Make-A-Wish. So I'm like, put your hand up in here if you're about to die.
Yeah.
I really get to guilt the crowd. It's just really fun. It's the most fun I have, because we did get a real crazy bidding war going on last year, which was pretty fun. And so I hope it's okay if I announce that you're going to be throwing in a guitar for this.
Yeah, you know what? As you were saying it, and I have been listening, I'm going from stand to stand in my studio looking at which guitar neck is the better one.
He's just going to randomly pick one.
I'd forgotten for a second about that, because things are going crazy, getting ready for the show and a bunch of other shows and other things going on here. I didn't want to forget now that you brought that up. I was like, oh, geez, I better not forget to bring that.
Yeah, no, cool. Do you know?
I'm thinking here, you to help me decide here. I've got this.
Awesome.
Where is it here? I'm looking at a guitar here that's, of course, it's my signature model, whatever, and I don't want to give this away at all. But
it's a Flying V, right?
Well, this is the whole point. The fact that I was just put this back on the stand and went, no, I don't want to give that one away.
With all the,
you were saying
stickers.
How many have you out there ready to die or are going to, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It's like I would walk right over to that guitar again and say, okay, well, that's the better one, and that's the one I really like, so maybe that thing will mean something more if I actually really like it. It's not like a leftover B-grade guitar from the pile over in my closet, you know what I mean?
Sure, because that is... we've raised $4,000 so far. We can sponsor a whole wish for a child for $10,000, which is what we're trying to hit. And so far I've got my friend Monica. She's an amazing photographer. She does these prints of her photos on aluminum. So it's like last year it was a print of Kronos from Venom on aluminum, which was pretty intense. I think that got like $400 or $500. And there's that. There, my buddy. Who's actually, I don't know how far he is from you. He's, where does Ross live? Dundas, Ontario. he's technically a reverend. He has a show on Metal Nation Radio called "To Metal for Church." He doesn't have a congregation or anything at the moment, but he hosts the show, and that's his congregation. He's throwing in a Tony Iommi signature SG Epiphone.
Wow.
So that'll be good too. And then there's just more. I have a buddy who he's a photographer as well. He's got a signed Tenacious D picture. He figured that one would get the most cash and all this kind of stuff. So that's really awesome that you're picking the good guitar, Jeff. Thank you very much.
Wow.
But still, compared to a Tony Iommi, I don't think it's. I think I got to think of a second thing now.
Well, no, it's not an actual Tony Iommi guitar. It's just one of his signature ones with the ups or the crosses.
Okay, well, I think here's the tipper. I'll throw in a new CD.
Oof, there you go. And a CD signed.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Vinyl?
No, but you did say. Sorry to hold your feet to the fire, but you did say you would sign the guitar too, right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, killer, man.
Yeah, that's nothing. Imagine if that was actually a big deal.
Awesome, man. Well, we are very excited to have you guys out. Okay, one last, if you don't mind,
Yep.
is there a reason that it's been since 1993? Like, is there?
Yeah, it's a very, very long story, but it's a combination of a whole pile of things.
Sure.
Tons. And I won't really go totally through it. How's that?
Fair enough.
I mean, I could, but I've done this many times, and it just takes too long. And I've bored the hell out of you guys already.
It's great, man. This is the greatest podcast.
I really would
of all
like
time.
to get into Canada and the States, so to speak. We've came back here and for a decade now. I don't know how long it's been. So long, I was just like, okay, we rehearse over at a studio we have in Frankfurt. That's what we did for 15 years. We would just fly over there to rehearse. That's where we meet and do it. We wouldn't come to Ottawa much, where I lived, or Vancouver. Vancouver, yes, but when I moved back to Ottawa, it was more like, okay, we're touring Europe mostly and other places. Let's just go to Europe and rehearse, and it became a second home.
Nice.
And then I think it was Dave Padden was always telling me, Jeff, I mean, there's a couple of little clubs in Ottawa. Why don't you play there and to warm up? Because you always do this to us. You call us up, and sometimes you have a new drummer, a new bass player, and you call us up and say, okay, here's a schedule, and you throw us into rehearsals in Frankfurt, Germany, and in the rehearsal studio, and the next minute, bang, there's 35,000 people after the rehearsals are done, and you want us to jump on a stage in front of people, and you always do it, and it takes us a couple of shows before we're comfortable and warm up. So
Sure.
Padden was always telling me, you got to play a local show. So finally, I actually played Ottawa, or something in North America for the first time since 1993. And this must have been, I'm guessing, like 2010 or somewhere in that neighborhood. That started, and then every year and a half, I play a local show. Then Quebec, big
Whoa.
festival there, called us and said, do you want to play there? And we thought, okay, sold out in 14 minutes. Okay, wait a second. Do you know what I mean? And that was a big theater. That wasn't a little club.
Sure.
And I'm like, whoa, maybe we should actually play here. And but then just backed off and did our stuff we were doing. Tour agents didn't want to book us in Canada or the States, and I said, screw them. So we play a few local shows, and then Heavy MTL 2011 called, said, would you like to play with Motorhead and Kiss? And we went, yes. And so we were, at the time, the layout that they had, there was only 4 dressing rooms in the fancy artist area, and they gave, Motorhead, Kiss, Anthrax, and us that area. So we're sitting here while that Gene Simmons Family Jewels team is filming, the whole family hanging out backstage, and we're thinking,
Whoa.
maybe we should be playing in Ottawa or in Canada more often, right?
That's
so
pretty cool.
we did that, and then it was right back to, okay, let's get an agent, let's do some touring, and same thing would happen. I won't even say which bands, but I'll say at least 2 or 3 of the big 4, and not the Canadian one. Said to me personally, if you want to come back to the States and do a tour, we will take you.
Nice.
You just need to have a proper label. distribution, and that's going to support you paying for your tour bus to be able, because you can't drive around in a van when you're doing 60 dates with a big band, right? You can't do it. You miss, your van breaks down or you have a problem, then you're not on the show, and the headliner is never going to talk to you again, right?
Right, yeah.
So basically, you need money to be able to go and do these shows. So here I was sitting here with, Europe always there for us since 2007 for sure, and making a living at this and having a great time with guitar endorsements in my own studio and not worrying about things that most musicians at that age and playing heavy metal worry about. Having a good time and good life and career, and getting offers from these bands that I grew up listening to that will take me out. And you wouldn't believe, banging my head against the wall talking to the U.S. label saying, but these guys said that if you sign us, we will be able to, I mean, it's as dumb as that. It's as simple as that.
Right.
Sign us and we will be on these tours. And they just shied away. They just were not interested in a band with a name Annihilator that's not a new band, that's an older band, that's not playing the kind of music that's popular in North America or the States. It's not this sort of, five-finger death punch. I mean, we're not talking about now, but I mean back then, the Triviums and the,
sure,
the Machine Heads and at the time, right? Remember Rob Flynn's Machine Head?
Oh yeah,
was not always like the Blackening or Blacken album. Or
sure,
whatever it was.
Yeah, they hated him for a while.
So it was like, from a business standpoint, I was saying, like, how many bands could just say, hey, we're going to go tour with this band for 2 months or a month, and I figured it was a shoo-in. We're in. I mean, yes, this is going to be awesome. We can finally get back to Canada and the States and go with the big names. And what a spoiled son of a bitch I am that I can just jump right back in the scene with these bands. And it turns around and no label wanted me. I've got every email back from these people that was, oh, that's great. We're happy for your success in Europe, and we're happy this, but we really don't think it's for us. Thank you very much.
Interesting.
So,
just because of the times, kind of, and the bands that were hip, like you're talking about.
Yeah, for sure. And it's also, too, in the States, it's a lot of the labels kind of that are still going in metal derived from a group of guys that were around in the late 80s that were like, had radio shows and worked for merchandise companies and started off at Roadrunner or started off at Metal Blade or started off at different things like this, or Combat, or all these, metal-related things going on in the 80s. And then when metal changed and Annihilator got dropped and all these metal bands got dropped at the time, in around 93, that group of guys stuck together, and one ended up being an editor of a guitar magazine, a big guitar magazine. One went off to this big label, one went off to start this label, one went to here and there. But they all ran a big website, metal website, and so they were all friends that came out of there. And I think in Annihilator's case, we had a series of unfortunate things going on. But one of them, of course, was that I wasn't writing necessarily my best records or the kind of music that was popular. But I kind of got a miniature blacklisting in the States, because when we went down to try to get what we thought would be surefire deals in the States, we couldn't even get crappy deals or small labels to deal with us, because for some reason that clan of people... it's a hard one without revealing the whole thing, but
sure.
Let's just say when we were dropped back in 93, we were supposed to have been dead, and it would have been some people's ego and happiness that we just went away and we were done because they said we were finished. And then what happened was within 1 year we had one of our biggest records called King of the Kill. Right. And that really offended some people. Let's just put it that way. And it's the stupidest reason in the world.
They all read the lyrics.
Well, you're not supposed to be able to get a deal or do well now that I've said that you're done.
Right.
And then that little group of people I was telling you about just made sure they got in the way every time we would look for something. Yet when we went over to Europe or Japan, it was just like, which company's going to sign us this time?
Wow.
Weird, eh? There's a conspiracy theory in there.
Yeah, the Illuminati was after you through the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
Selling all that heroin to the grunge guys.
You got it.
It really was grunge.
My God, how many bands would just die to go tour with, let's say, 3 of the big 4?
Sure.
I mean, which band in any kind of hard rock, heavy metal music would not jump on that? I was even sinking my own cash in until I realized oh, so to do this tour with this band, I need about $180,000 of my own money.
Wow,
You know what I mean? It just didn't make any sense. Because if you think about it, tour buses and crew and stuff, you're looking at $50,000 a month.
Right, yeah.
So it's just crazy.
Sure, yeah. I've heard that
Anyway,
with buses.
we could talk all night,
today.
couldn't we?
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yes,
hey, man,
we could.
thanks a lot for opening up and sharing all these stories with us. And hold on, Nancy's waving at me. What's up?
When he's in town.
Oh, Nancy's trying to upsell one when you get into town. But we'll see. We'll be pretty busy. I don't know.
I know.
You know what? I will be totally busy, but I get in the night before, and hopefully I can come down and see what bands are playing that night for a few hours and get my beauty old man sleep.
Cool.
That was beauty / old man sleep. I'm not sure if the two go together, but beautiful old man. I have no idea why I said that, but anyway, the Friday night should be fun, and Saturday will be a bunch of stress for a bunch of people, but probably not for me. I'll just be having fun waiting for the show and watching some great bands.
Oh, exactly. No, we'll get her licked in fine fashion. So thanks a lot for taking the time out, man, and doing this. It's much appreciated.
Oh, for sure. And you remind me of that guitar, so I don't forget that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I will.
Good. Well, hey, nice meeting Ollie, and we'll see you soon.
Cool.
Cheers,
Thanks,
Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
See you guys.
Big Nate Productions presents Calgary Metalfest V. From Thursday, September 15 to Saturday, September 17th. That's 3 days of metal. Thursday headliners, The Exalted Piledriver. Friday headliners, Toxic Holocaust. And Saturday's a night not to miss. A historic night of Canadian metal featuring Annihilator, Exciter, Sacrifice, and Razor. Go to CalgaryMetalFest.com for more details. Calgary Metalfest V.
Metal Nation Radio. United we rock.